Change this. Yeah. Okay. So let us get some music going. Let us update our docs. Okay, we're getting there, we're getting there. Let's move these over. Okay. Technically, I need to save this again. Make sure I have the right version. Yeah. Index, yeah. Welcome, welcome, one and all. Alright. So we got that. Change the music here. Our next one. Alright. So need to update this thing. Welcome, welcome. Lawful evening, Justin, Wagwan. Welcome, welcome. Yeah. It's time to make a new addition. Our document is becoming rather large. Keep it like this. Changes to H2. Yeah. So we are now on Article 4. Article 4. Bring up our documents. Yeah, Article 4. Okay. Welcome, welcome one and all. We're going to get started shortly. Just setting things up. Turn this down a little bit. Look like me catch people them too early. But either way, whoever is here, we are going to start our live session. When a business who want to come in late, who want to get entertained, we are simply going to be proceeding and moving forward. Even if we have one somebody on the live, we're going to be moving forward. Because we know that people are going to join in after them start here. Wagwan, Kim, Lawful, welcome. Kwako, Lawful, welcome. Welcome everybody. Today, we are going to be continuing our constitutional draft. And after today, starting on Saturday, we're going to start covering more ground so that we can complete this thing in due time. We don't need to be dragging this thing out further than it needs to be. Lawful, greetings. So, what I'm going to do, I'm going to put in some more time into this document to finish up the original draft. And then from there, we are going to start working on suggestions on the live. You know, if we have email suggestions, we're going to work on those as well, implementing and polishing the document, you know, looking at other jurisdiction and examples so that we can focus on the next stages, right? Now, this is an important stage because we have to incorporate enough to cover the basics of the law. What is the law going to be? What are the protections going to be? What is going to be the role of those we entrust to assist in our protection, in our affairs, etc., etc. And when we look at these things, we can't just look at the basics, because one of the reasons why we are in this situation where we have Parliament making rules and regulation, acts and these and that. The reason they're doing these things is because the Constitution itself was not specific enough to limit those powers. That is why we are in the problems we are in today. And when the Constitution is not specific enough and it doesn't limit certain things that government can do, that is when we start having these massive spending, these massive, you know, encroachment of our rights. And we are left at the mercy of the courts to resolve the matters, because the other problem is we did not reserve any of our power. Well, the one them with what? We did not reserve our power. We just gave 100% power through voting. And when we give 100% power through voting, then we have no control over the entities or the bodies of government that we give this control. So we want to be cognizant of these issues, because these are later what we consider to be issues. We give untethered power to something, and then we are complaining that there's something that oppress us, there's something that cause us problem, there's something that do this and that. It don't make any sense. And that only comes about with an illiterate population. Sorry to say it, but it only comes about in an illiterate population. So, we have to look at the problems, we have to look at what's there, and then we have to craft solutions around that so that we ourselves don't end up in the same place where we are today. We create a future, we create a boundary so that not only us, because we can start living this, but also our children and our grandchildren and those of our posterity that is coming up through our bloodlines can experience a different society than what we had to endure, right? That is the whole point of this. So, with that being said, let us get into some of the meat and potatoes of constitutional drafting. So let us head over to the computer. And since we know that we are going to have people who are out there asking, how do I get this? How do I find this? How do we follow along? You go to voiceofjamaica.com. See it right here. voiceofjamaica.com. Right? You scroll down, and the first post is called New Constitution. Now, before we go here, I want to emphasize something. You see, people have a short attention span. So let me cover this first. For those who are watching the replay, you'll get to have the chance to take your time and get this done. When you go to voiceofjamaica.com, you click on My Voice. And it only takes less than a minute. You scroll down and you cast your vote on these different topics, right? So here we have sugary drinks tax. Do you agree with a sugary drinks tax? Yes or no? Just click on one of it and click vote. Right? Do you agree that Parliament should place a tax on bag juice and sugary drinks? Right? You click on whatever you choose and click vote. You scroll down, go to the next question. Right? Should government dictate how you eat or make a living? You choose your voting option and you vote. Right? It is very simple, and you are simply voicing your opinion. It is important that we learn that these things are here, because if you don't voice your opinion anywhere, then you obviously don't think that your voice counts, right? So if we can get some more support on the website and you can show your opinion, it is free. It takes you less than a minute to click on one of these buttons and click vote. Okay? So go ahead and take care of that and let us proceed. So if you want to follow along with the constitutional draft, you go to home, you scroll down to the first post which says New Constitution, and then you click on Constitution and Bill of Rights. Right? Well, if you just want to view, we can use the PDF version here. If you want the Word version, it is here at Constitutional Draft. Right? So let us work from the PDF edition, and it will open up the PDF file for you on your phone, your tablet, or your computer. Right? So we covered much of this already. Our next section is Article 4, right? Article IV. Let us go down to Article 4. Pass it already. Yep, Article 4, right? So we've been through several sections, and as we were discussing earlier, we're going to be covering more on Saturday. Try to cover at least 2 to 4 sections additionally, so that we can complete the draft initially, and then we can start working on getting people on the live stream, to make suggestions, to make, additions, whatever you feel is something important that needs to be included in a constitution. Any kind of problem we have, we should be putting it as a solution in the constitution. We should not be waiting. I say, well, the court can handle this, the court can handle that. No. Let me also share something with you that a lot of people don't know. The reason common law exists is because we, the people, did not come together and define the things that the court should do. So the only options left for the court when they face things that are not defined in constitutional law is to make up their own law. And how do they make up their own law? They make rulings and then they rely upon those rulings. And that is what they've been doing. That is what they now call common law. Because those laws are not a part of the Constitution. Right? And then sometimes we have the laws that are in the Constitution, but because common law is there and people are ignorant of those constitutional laws, then common law by default start taking effect. So these are some of the things that we need to fix if we are going to draft a new constitution, right? So anyways, let us proceed. So this is Article 4, right? This section is called Force of Law, which deals with public peace service, enforcement authority, and public protection. Section 1, establishment of the public peace service. The enforcement of law in Jamaica shall be carried out by a national body known as the Public Peace Service. Right? Again, we can come up with whatever name. This is just a placeholder. Right? The PPS exists to protect life, maintain public order, and enforce the laws defined in this constitution. Right? So, right at the onset, we make sure we are defining what their limits are, right? Anything they do is something defined in this constitution. So them not have no power outside of what is defined, right? The PPS shall operate as a public service, not as a force above the people. Even in today's society, the statutes and the acts of parliament have limits, but people and public servants often do not abide by nor respect those limits, right? And that is why we need to have consequence for many things. Section 2, authority of the Public Peace Service. The Public Peace Service may A. Investigate alleged criminal activity. B. Detain individuals based on lawful evidence. C. Prevent immediate harm to persons or property. Right? And we covered some of this earlier. Everything is based on lawful evidence. You can't just go out there and just lock up people just because somebody make a complaint. It needs to be based on some kind of evidence that you have in your possession. The PPS shall not create laws. B. Impose punishment. C. Act outside the limits defined in this constitution. Right? So you immediately place limits on their power. Because obviously, it is a reactionary power. It is not something to try to prevent or read minds. So you can't just allow any kind of peace officer or peace service to go out there and do it, whatever them feel like, say, is enforcing the law. Section 3, structure of the Public Peace Service. Each parish shall maintain a parish peace unit. The parish peace units shall operate under the supervision of the parish commander. A national peace coordination office shall coordinate operations across parishes. Right? So we have a local one in a parish, and then we have a national coordination office, where if there is some kind of disturbance across the island, they can coordinate only on such matters, right? No centralized authority may override parish level protections without lawful justification. And that is self-explanatory, right? So a national peace service can't just go take over things that are going on in a specific parish. It has to be some national issue with them to deal with. Section 4, duty of the people. Members of the Public Peace Service serve the people and are accountable to them. All officers must act with A. Integrity, B. Restraint, C. Respect for rights. 3. Any abuse of authority shall be treated as a criminal offense. This is a primary thing that is missing from our current legal system. If a public official violates the law or violate a right or act outside of their authority, they are not held accountable. And in many cases, they are not held as basically acting criminally. So we need to remove that so-called immunity. All right? 5, identification and transparency. All PPS officers must be clearly identifiable at all times while on duty. And you know, this is interesting because how many times have you seen a police officer and they have a single name on their badge? Sometimes you don't see no name. Sometimes you don't see no face. Sometimes them it look like I just eyes here look on. You can't see no part of them. But yet still, they must stop and investigate and ask you for this and ask you for that. You don't know if a police, you don't know if a criminal. All them something they need to get taken care of. Right? So all PPS officers must be clearly identifiable at all times while on duty. 2. Each officer shall display A. Name or identification number. B. Parish designation. And this is critical. You know, sometimes we are engaged by the security forces on the road and you don't know where they're coming from, where they're located, where they are stationed. You don't know what authority they are using. And then just, them never want to answer questions. Right? Those things need to be abolished. 3. All enforcement actions must be recorded and documented. Much time the people involved for body cam. Simply make it a law. Simply make it a law. Anything that happens and you can't account for it, criminal punishment. Simple. That is going to be the deterrent. It is the punishment that deters them from doing foolishness. Right? Section 6. Recording of enforcement actions. All PPS officers shall use audio and video recording devices during all public interactions. This is not hard. If we can spend how much in billions on buses that we did not need in the first place, then I am pretty sure we can spend a few million and equip our enforcement officers with audio and video recording devices that they cannot shut off. Once there is movement, it should start recording. Simple. Once any movement detected, where it detects that you're walking or you're running, it just automatically start record. It's that simple. Then no need for a turn on and a turn off and a mute and a touch and a... No. Foolishness that. 2. Recordings shall A. Begin at first contact with any member of the public. Right, so this looks like you're using human detectable signals. So facial recognition or any kind of body outline or something like that. Biometrics, right? B. Continue until interaction ends. Right? So you can, with AI now we have all kind of things we can set as a trigger to start recording or stop recording. Right? So we need to be utilizing these things. We are not a backward society. We are just simply an underutilized society. And those things must stop. 3. Failure to record an interaction without lawful justification shall A. Invalidate enforcement action. 3. Create presumption of misconduct. Very simple. So if we have an enforcement officer out there trying to do something and don't want to record what he's doing, the only time people hide something is when they have something to hide, right? If you don't have nothing to hide, you don't have any reason to be hiding your actions. Don't have any reason. Section 7. Public access to records. All recordings of PPS activity shall be preserved as public records. 2. Any person involved in an interaction may request and obtain a copy of the recording. 3. Records shall not be altered, destroyed, or concealed. Right? Now, this is an initial draft. So, this I can see changing, right? It says any person involved in an interaction may request and obtain a copy of the recording. Now, you know, this is a protection mechanism, but in some cases where the individual may not be able to access their own recording, right? We might have an authorized individual being able to request the recording, like a spouse, parents, etc., right? Someone with power of attorney. Section 8, limits on surveillance. The PPS shall not conduct surveillance of individuals without lawful cause supported by evidence. Right? Now, this is a big thing. You know, sometimes we have security forces out there take out them personal phone and record people. That is dangerous. There is no lawful reason for a constable or an officer or a public servant to be taking out their personal phone and recording people while they're on duty. Nowhere in the laws or the rules is that authorized. So again, because sometimes it appears that the system is protecting some of these unlawful activities, they go unnoticed or they go unpunished. And that should not be the case. Right? If you are there saying that you are protecting the public, you cannot be out there doing some of these things that you're doing. Under no circumstances should a matter of fact, you shouldn't even be on a road with a public phone. No, with a private phone. You should lock up that in your locker, lock it up in your car or something. Once you're on duty, you should not be able to have a personal phone with you. You should have a work phone. Because if you have law enforcement out there personally recording people, for what purpose do you need recordings of the public while you're on duty? And it is not official business. That's ridiculous. 2, mass surveillance of the public without cause is prohibited. Right? So, you can't just get up and just put up one camera so, and it not have no public purpose. It needs to have purpose-driven action, purpose-driven surveillance. So if we're going to have a surveillance in the middle of a square, right, that is justified because anybody can now request the record be pulled if something happens, right? If someone is affected, they should be able to pull the surveillance record, but you can't have a private individual mass surveilling without any lawful public reason, right? 3, any authorized surveillance must be specific, time limited, recorded and documented, right? So if it is authorized by law or by some specific purpose, then it obviously must meet these criteria. 9, use of force. 1, force may be used only when necessary to prevent immediate harm, to protect life, to stop ongoing criminal activity. Again, if we have body cams and personal body recording devices, we don't have to worry about what they do, right? We just simply look at the recording. Just make sure so they can lock it off and then can mute it. 2, the level of force must be proportional to the threat. We currently have this in common law, you know, but how many times do we see the courts enforcing this? 3, excessive or unnecessary force shall constitute a criminal offense. Plain and simple. If you out there and just go on like you got out a road, that is excessive and unnecessary force. The reason for the security forces is to apprehend people caught conducting criminal actions and brought before the court. It is not for them to be determining what should happen to that individual on the side of the road or in the bush. Right? So excessive or unnecessary force shall constitute a criminal offense. I mean, just like in regular society, if you use unnecessary force and you harm somebody, it's a crime. You go before the courts. Section 10, detention and custody. 1, no person shall be detained without lawful cause supported by evidence. And we talked about that earlier in the previous section. 2, detained individuals must be informed of the reason for the detention, be brought before a court within a reasonable time. And by reasonable time, we're going to define that to 24 hours. Right? You cannot be held in detainment simply because a judge is not available. That is unacceptable. Right away or within 24 hours. You're supposed to see a judge so that the judge can determine whether or not your arrest was lawful and if it is justified, where a trial is going to be needed. Right? 3, conditions of detention must respect basic human dignity. Imagine you have holding cells and prisons with inhumane conditions. What do we mean? You have this the smell of poop, the smell of pee, the smell of all kind of things. You have mosquito, you have fly, you have all sorts of things in those areas. And it's almost like it's considered a norm, right? You don't have certain facilities available. You don't treat people as if they are innocent until proven guilty. You're pretty much thrown in a dungeon and then you await to see what your fate is going to be. And that should never be the case. That is not a respect for human dignity. It is in the Constitution right now where it says you are supposed to be, treated in a humane way, and you're supposed to be given facilities to prepare for your defense. How many times are we given that due process right? This is why you put everything in the Constitution. So the penalties and the rules are in the same place. Section 11, Vehicle and Public Transportation Regulation. Private use of vehicles shall not be treated as a criminal matter unless it causes harm or risk to others. This should have been basic from day one. Right? If you are privately using your car or what you want to call it, a vehicle, there is no way you can be engaging in so-called criminal activity unless there is evidence to support that. Right? But that is not what is happening. Everybody is considered a potential criminal nowadays. 2. Public vehicles used for hire, employment, or service must A. Be equipped with audio and video recording systems, and B. Maintain recorded data for a defined period. Right? So we have buses, we have taxis, we have all kind of different so-called licensed operated vehicles on the road. How many of them have video recording? If a fight broke out, or if a robbery occur, or if a theft occur, or anything, assault, how do we have evidence of that now? It is shameful. Again, this is not complicated technology. We literally have this all over the place. Cheap because of how mass produced it is. This is not some fringe technology that we have to pay hundreds of thousands of dollars for. These things should be basic and mandatory. 3. Recorded footage shall serve as primary evidence in disputes or incidents involving such vehicles. Plain and simple. If we have a recording in a taxi, in a bus, in a juta, whatever it may be, it should simply be able to pull the footage, resolve any dispute because audio and video is being recorded. Right? Section 12, Evidence from public service vehicles. Where recording equipment is required by law, a failure to maintain such equipment shall be a violation. Right? That's very simple. If you have somebody who have a public passenger vehicle and they either tamper with the recording or the recording now work, I hear a problem that, right? Because if something occur where that recording is needed to exonerate you from wrong, and if I know, say, you disconnect it, or for whatever reason the recording is not there, you have to have a really good reason to not have a violation right there. Lawful welcome. Right? 2. In the absence of the required recordings, claims or defenses relying on undocumented events may be limited or disallowed as determined by the court. All right? And this is how you get rid of this long drawn out court process. People are out there a fish for information when a simple video recording could have shown the objective evidence. All right? Section 13, Accountability and Oversight. A public oversight body shall be established in each parish to review the actions of the public peace service. Right? Right now, one of the big problems we have is that we have governmental bodies that are doing oversight. Right? How can you be a part of a system and reviewing the same system? It does not make any sense. If we're going to have an oversight body, it cannot be a part of the government. It's almost like you need to go to the doctor, but you know I turn the doctor yourself and I say, all right, I don't feel like say this I go, I feel like I that. You know, it don't make no sense. Don't make no sense. In serious matters like public duty, we cannot have the same entity investigating itself. It has to be something outside of the body being investigated. The Winds Dad, welcome, lawful. 2. Oversight bodies shall 1. or A. receive complaints, B. review recordings, C. recommend disciplinary or criminal action. Right? Now, this is strategic. You know, if an oversight body is going to do oversight, they cannot initiate criminal action. They can't bring an action to court. All they would do is do investigations and gather the evidence and put everything together necessary so that the other body who would do the prosecution would have a full case file. They don't have to sit there waiting. Right? So if you have the oversight, you do oversight. You're going to do your investigation, you corroborate, and you dig up, and you find, and you make a case file, and everything ready for court. Right? 3. Findings of oversight body shall be public. How much time we are here about this report and that the report and this is summary, and that is ridiculous. If there is evidence to support that a crime occurred or some kind of wrongdoing occurred, everybody should be able to see it. Everybody, all materials that are used in a criminal trial or in any kind of public service, we should be able to go and see it. Anybody should go and go look for themselves and see what really go on. We don't need to hear summaries on the news, 2-minute bites of what supposedly happened. Everybody should be able to review the evidence themselves. Section 14. Prohibition of secret enforcement. Secret policing, undisclosed operations, or unidentified enforcement actions are prohibited. I mean, that is self-explanatory, right? All enforcement authority must be visible, documented, and accountable. Section 15. Citizens' interaction rights. Every person has the right to 1. Know the identity of an officer. 2. Understand the reason for any enforcement action. 3. Record interactions with the PPS. 4. Refuse unlawful commands. Now, this is a big one. This is a very big one. See if we can zoom in some. Let's bring this over here. So, this is a big one. Refuse unlawful commands. Now, we know say, and I've always said this, we do not interfere with the duties of any public official. But here's the thing. What if an officer say, give me your ID? That is a lawful order, right? And there is nowhere in the law that says that you must provide your ID without any kind of criminal activity present. You have the right to ask the constable, you know, what law do you suspect me of breaking? And if he can't provide the law, you, again, this is not for today. So, make sure I make that clear. I am not telling anyone to go do anything to obstruct any so-called duty that a constable might be out there doing. Right? So, What I am saying is, if we are going to craft the laws going forward, right? Everybody needs to know what they can and cannot do. As it stands right now, we as a people don't know what we should and should not do as it concerns the law in many cases, because sometimes you will end up in a court or you end up in a certain situations and the court can rule left or right, right? However, if we as a people know that a lawful command from a constable can only come from his powers and duties, then that is the only thing he can command someone to do, if he has the power to do that, if it is written down in law. Right? So if it is written down in law, then obviously if the constable say, well, we are conducting an investigation and you are suspected because we have you on video thumping somebody in them face, then you have to provide whatever they are asking for. But if them can't articulate how them come about for you ask you for certain things or tell you to do certain things, you can say, I am hereby refusing to do that, because that is not a lawful command. That's not a lawful order. Right? We should have that power. Once they do not have evidence, we should simply be able to say, no, I am not going to comply, because that is not a lawful order. Where is your evidence? Anyways, let us move forward. Section 16. Duty of the public peace service. The public peace service shall exist to 1. Protect the people. 2. Preserve peace. 3. Enforce the law fairly. 4. Prevent abuse of power. 5. Maintain trust between the people and those who serve them. It is important that we outline the duties and the limits of any enforcement service that we employ in a constitution, right? Like we said before, everything should be in the constitution. You should not have 50 different bodies of law that you have to learn. And if everything is properly defined, everything is properly outlined, we can simply have different sections that say, okay, for example, we just went over section 4, right? Section 4 deals with the public peace service, right? Force of law. This is where all police legislation would have there, as we know them today, right? So we would have outlined everything here so. So if we need to look up something, we don't need to read the whole thing. We just go to the specific section that deals with just that body of government or that body of enforcement action. Right? And that is how we make things accessible, easily legible, easily readable, easily accessible to everyone. We're not supposed to need a college degree to go through a simple constitution. It should be plain and simple and straight. And that is the goal. You make something so simple that anybody, once you have a primary school education, you're supposed to can go through this and say, yo, yeah man, this makes sense. Now I can see what is my duty, what is my purpose as it concerns the law. Right? And if everybody have a stake in a society, if everybody have a say in a society, then much of the problems that we have today, I don't think we would have them in the future. Much of the things that we have being debated in Parliament and these other places, I don't see where those are issues submitted by the people. Creating new tax, but yet still you can spend much in billions of dollars, so-called working on other projects. Right? We need to come up with the problems that we have as a nation and then work on them as a people to fix them. We can't leave everything people are blame government, As them say, some of the people them vote for that. But what about the people who did not vote? What about the people who have no confidence in the system of government and does not want this kind of system of government to continue? If we're not happy with how the country is being run, then we have to create an alternative. That is how it works, If you have a problem and you don't want that problem anymore, what do? You work towards either fixing the problem or replacing it with something that you want. It's not a matter of just talking. It's a matter of doing. So when we have sessions like these where we have a chance to input on constitutional drafting, we're going to have a lot of interesting things coming down the pipe, right? One of the questions that are going to come up is, how would we want government to look? How do we want government to function? How would we want we the people to interact with the government and so forth? And it's going to take collective input. If we had a government where the government mostly have to answer to us as the people, right? We don't need everybody every single day, every single time for make decisions, but the majority should always take precedence. Because obviously, if most people want a certain outcome, that means that it is beneficial to most. Now, some people might say, well, what happened to the people who not agree, right? If it is a minority that don't agree to a certain thing, again, it is in the best interest of the majority, right? We can't have two separate societies. One will say yes and one say no. Unfortunately, technically we can, Technically, we can have the island divided in whatever, but you always hear the term divided we fall, don't? So if we don't have a collective of the people and we divide up everything, it's not like people can just get up and move and say, all right, you know something? Me not like the party of the island, I want to go over so. Technically you can, but how many people have that capability? Right? That will become a new problem. Why create a problem when we can simply say, okay, if it is benefiting the majority, the minority just have a fit in. It cannot be that bad that the majority wants to disadvantage themselves. Right? So that is why majority vote always basically win situations, because the majority is going to say, well, we want this for our collective benefit, right? So if the minority don't see the benefit in that, then unfortunately, it is the majority of the people that are going to, because if you go the other way, the majority are going to suffer. And do we really want to go down that path of trying to figure out, okay, should we let the minority, which is what we kind of have in this situation where if we have a minority in government. When I say a minority, I'm talking about numbers. We have a minority in government running the majority of the people, right? And what do we have? We have mostly public outcries. We have mostly people who are unsatisfied, people who are disgruntled, people who don't even want to be anywhere near what the government is doing, right? And some people are like, okay, well, me kind of live a good life. Me over here in one corner, but everybody else over here, so they might feel the blunt of it. So the majority vote don't really count, because at the end of the day, because most people don't participate, right? At this point, that does not stop the majority from suffering. So in order for us to change that, we have to now decide, do we want to change the laws, or do we want to keep complaining? Very simple. Do we want to change the laws to benefit us as a people, or do we want to continue to complain and ask and beg and plead and pray and hope and wish? We're going to have to get to that point. And like we've said before, and we'll continue to say it, violence and uprising is not going to work. That is not being advocated here. That is not what we are going to presume or to ask that people do. No, absolutely not. All right? If we want to change things, we are going to take action, yes, but it is not in the form of opposing the government or trying to overthrow or do any of that. Everything we do is what? Lawful. Always. And that is a motto we are going to stick by, because the solutions are in the law. It is just that most people in Jamaica do not know that it is there. And if you don't know something is there, even though it's there for your benefit, it does not benefit you that it exists. Until you actually use something to your benefit, it doesn't matter whether it exists or not. And that is why we are starting to do these things, right? We craft a constitution, we modify it, we add things to it. Exactly. You know, we put things in place so that when the time comes and we are satisfied that yes, we have everything in this thing here, and we feel like say this can be at least a great starting point where we can have the laws in place and the different things that will make us a better nation, then we move forward. Right? Then we move forward. And for those who keep thinking, yeah man, everybody keep on attack, everybody keep on attack. Again, we need some intelligence here. First, you have to talk. You can't get up and just run go down the street. You don't even know what is down the street. You run go down the one trucker come, boof. Right? You need to have some intelligence when you are talking about matters that are going to affect the fabric of society. You don't just get up so and run all about just because you can. Just because you can do something, it doesn't mean that you should do it. You can walk off one bridge or one building. Do you have to? Do you need to? Is it going to benefit you? Right. Capability does not mean that you should. So, the point of this kind of talking is to build upon it. Is to take time and create a framework like what we have, but an enforceable framework that we don't need to look outside of it. We simply have one body of law. And once we have one body of law that covers everything, we don't need a legislative body to be making more laws as we go along. And I gave the example before for those who weren't here before. We have so many laws covering criminal acts, right? And in none of those laws does it truly define the elements of what a criminal act is. But all of them are criminal acts. So if you have the basics, for example, you say a criminal act requires intent, a criminal act requires evidence, and a criminal act requires the act. So you have to do something. It has to show that you had the intention of doing it and you need evidence to support it. If you have these three things, right? Why do we need 500 pages of legislation? It don't matter what type of crime it is. A crime is a crime. You're done. Literally, probably a paragraph with some bullet points, and you're done. We don't need Dangerous Drugs Act, Offenses Against Persons Act, Offenses Against Properties Act, this, and yeah, pile up, paper. And I see the agents are here. You know, we have so much legislation, and some of them are coming from so far. that it is almost impossible for a single individual to get up to speed on what the law is. Get up to speed on what the law is. And the agents know, if you keep on reporting the lie for foolishness, so we are going to start revealing some information, don't? Right? So, that's a good segue. Now, we have a constitution, and the constitution say it shall be the supreme law of the land, and it shall be superior to any other law or any other act. In Jamaica, we don't have any laws. We have no laws in Jamaica. What we have is an unlawful conversion of an act of parliament masquerading as the law. And that is easily proven. A law is a law, right? Why are we giving a law a different name? If we're calling something, we say this is the law, right? Why don't we say the law of guns? Why don't we say the law of crimes? The law of this? Why? Why can't we use the term law? You know why? Because they can't. It is not law. Law is something that is unchangeable. The Constitution is an example of a law. A law is unchangeable, especially without a referendum of the people. Meaning, the people are the original trustees of the law. That I want to probably not understand that. But we as a people, when you're born, we have the power to do things in society, right? We give up some of that power. And I say some of it because really and truly, it was not defined. We give up some of that power when we vote in elections. It is that power that we gave up that now allows the government to reformulate, to be born again. Don't want to get too much into it, but that gives the power into the government to reborn again and to continue their activities. So in essence, we are giving our permission for the government to reform itself and to start up a new parliament, a new house, a new senate, all these different things, right? And the way we do that is either by our fingerprint or, in some cases, by some kind of written action, right? So you have to go do something. It is not implied. So even though we give them the power to do things, they claim that, for example, the Road Traffic Act and the Road Traffic Regulation are law, right? So why don't they call it that? If you're going to create a law, stop calling it an act. Where are we? In a movie? Why you keep calling it a regulation? Why you keep calling it a legislation? Why you keep calling it a statute? Call it a law. Can't really say why at this point. But there is a specific reason why they cannot say this document is called a law. Right? However, the way it applies to us is by trickery. Because they know that people will not read, especially something that doesn't apply to you, something that is so obscure and in the corner somewhere. They are not going to tell anyone that the reason things apply to us is by presumption of law, presumption of the force of law, right? So because they are using a presumption of the force of law, they have to bring you into their presumptional world. And how does that happen? That happens by contracting. A government can only operate through contracts. Only. If you don't have a contract, the laws do not, the statutes or the acts or the regulations do not automatically apply to you. So from your born, somebody starts signing for you. When you become of age, you start signing up form and paperwork and document. And those are the contracts that allow those acts and regulations and those kind of things to apply to you. So, what do we mean by that? Every single form you filled out, what is required at the end? A signature and the date. You really think that it is just a form? If it was just a form, why does it come with instructions? Why does it come with terms? Why does it come with legal language that you don't even understand, but you think you do because it looks like English, but it is not English? Because if someone asks you what a certain terms mean, you don't know. You're only going to give what you think it means. So if it was just a form requiring information, why do you need to sign it? Why are you assenting it? You are giving it force and power. Once you do that, then you are agreeing to the terms and conditions that is placed before you, right? And when we sign these things, we don't even know what a signature is. We just got it and we write out the name or we scribble something and we say, yeah man, we sign it. All right, good to go, you know. You don't even know what is a signature, how you can sign, what are the different capacities, what are the different restrictions. You don't know any of that. You just a follow. Everybody do it, so you just follow back at them. All right, boom. Everybody a join line for go pay. Yeah man, me join the line and me go pay. Everybody get one card. Yeah man, me want a card too. Because it appears that those are the only options available, right? How is that different from a conveyor belt? How is that different from a line where you don't even know what the real purpose of these things are? You don't examine the things once you get them. You just take them and you just go about your business. So, you know, all of these things, again, they were so commonplace back in the day that people never really even, you never really have to discuss it at this level because we were more intelligent than what we have today. Our foreparents were way more intelligent. Almost everybody understood what a crime was, what this was, what that was. So it wasn't even something that needed to be written down. But over time, when we lose knowledge, and how do we lose knowledge? How does knowledge get lost? Very simple. War. That's it. Under the pretext and the pretense of war, that is how we lose knowledge. Because what? The first people to go are the elders. Apothecary, lawful, welcome. Right? The first people that normally become victims of war are those who are of age. Them go through them life, most of them life already. Them can't run, you know, and a lot of things happen to cause them to not pass on the knowledge further. Right? And if we look back in our history, we will see clearly that since the so-called world wars, there has never been any period of peace. There is always a conflict. Always a conflict. So when the conflict game isn't enough, then you start having the distraction game. Then you start having the contract game. Then you start having all of these different distractions all over the place. so that the knowledge cannot be passed on to the next generation. And if we have a disrupted society, right? Remember, if a society is conquered because of war, it is the winning nation. The reason they call it conquering is that they are now going to impose their will on the conquered nation. So whatever you were studying before, whatever your ancestors passed on, whatever, anything that was there before, they are going to scrap all of that and impose a new system of religion and government. That's why these wars were fought. So, when these wars are fought and these religions and these things are passed on, then that means that whatever you know before as a generation, that is going to be wiped clean with schooling. It only takes 2 generations to wipe out most of the knowledge that a people have. So you have a set of people born within a 5-year period of time. 30 years from that, you have another set of people born, and so it keep on and go on. Typically 20 to 30 years, you have a new generation start, right? And once you have 2 generations that are messed up, everything that follows is corrupted. It's only a few who keep the knowledge within the family. And as we know, to pass our knowledge within your family is a very hard thing. Very hard. We can't talk about much of that here. But when we have families that lose knowledge, it is not because necessarily they are incompetent. You have local wars too. People fighting over foolishness. Fight over sitting on your dead left it. What was that for? Greed. Some people don't want to work for what them say them want. Bad mind, jealousy. Some of them colonized too. Exactly. Right? So the point is, we cannot rely on generational knowledge again like we used to. So now, one of the only ways we can preserve the future of how we want society to remain stable is through a constitution. If we have a constitution that is defined, it is something that if drafted correctly, it can withstand the test of time. Even if a nation is taken over at some point, the constitution that is there is still considered valid until a new system of government is set up. But that system of government is either going to have to wipe the slate clean or adhere to the laws that are written in the constitution. Right? And if the constitution states that only the people can validate the government, that creates a completely different scenario than these constitutions that are out there that leave all of the legislative and the lawmaking power to Parliament, the House, the Senate, and Congress, right? If you remove that fallacy of an element and we restore it back to the people, that can preserve a society rather than leaving it up to a moving goalpost of a legislative branch, right? So that is why a constitution is really important. It can withstand the test of time. It can withstand the test of incompetence of the people over time. And it can also protect the society so that, over time when we have certain foolishness go on, as people and generations distill out, a future generation is going to come back and look at the constitution again and say, what were the founding fathers trying to accomplish with this document? And then they will build on top of that a better nation, right? So constitutions are very important. Now, back to how these acts of parliaments and these regulations apply to us. When we sign all these contracts, not only do we get converted into legal fictions, and unfortunately in this day and age, legal fictions are synonymous with what them call natural persons, which again is another legal fiction. But now, the way the government is looking at it is that you are a corporation. You are a fiction. You are a figment of the imagination, just like a corporation. So that is how they gain jurisdiction over you. And that is how the laws or the acts of parliament and regulations start applying. And we covered this before several times, right? The Local Governance Act, Section 552, where it converts everyone, all the inhabitants of Jamaica, into a municipal corporation, right? And if you are not in agreement with that categorization, you have to make it known, right? And if you don't make it known by notice or public notice, then that is how you are viewed when you are being represented, or whenever you end up in court, or whenever you are signing any official document, etc., etc. Right? So that is the reason why we need to get rid of a lot of these things that are in front of your face but unseen. Unseen. So that is why we have our constitutional draft, so that we can correct a lot of the problems that we have in society today. And for those newcomers who wants to review the document, you can go to voiceofjamaica.com. You scroll down and you click on New Constitution. That's the first post on the website. And then you can click on the PDF edition right here. You can click on Constitutional Draft if you want the Word version. Or if you want to just view it on the website, you can click on Constitution and Bill of Rights. And it will load up a text version, right? So you don't have to view the PDF if you don't want to. So we have covered quite a bit thus far. We are up to Article 4. Right? So we are up to Article 4, the force of law. And on Saturday, we are going to cover between 2 to 4 more sections until we have completed our draft. Now, if you want to make a submission, you can scroll down and you can make a suggestion here of something you may want to include in the constitutional draft, and we will consider these after we're done with the initial drafting. Now, for those of you who missed the previous sessions, you can go to voiceofjamaica.com, you click on New Constitution, and if you scroll down, you will see all of the previous TikTok sessions that we had. So here is draft session 1, draft session 2, draft session 3, and draft session 4, right? So we had 4 sessions thus far. This is going to be draft session 5, which will be uploaded within the next day. So you can see what we discussed so far in detail, and you can also be a part of the constitutional draft by making a submission right here on the post, right? So you can fill out a name, email, and what you would like to be added to the constitutional draft once we are finished with the initial draft. So I'm going to open up the panel. So if you would like to say anything, you want to add anything, you have any comments, we can go over that, right? So let's pull up back our PDF edition. And again, this is just our initial draft. From what I see so far, it looks like we might have a 50 to 70 page constitution, right? Once we're done with the draft, we're gonna have a table of contents section where we can easily see what sections cover what. We're gonna make sure the PDF is linkable to the different sections. So instead of you scrolling to find a specific section, you can just click on it and it brings you to the specific section. But you know, for now, this is just the initial draft. So we won't have everything included right away. And that is just a minor detail, right? But this is our preamble, which again, we're gonna sharpen as we go along. We, the free people of the island of Jamaica, united by land, sea, and shared purpose, declare our collective right to govern ourselves in freedom, justice, and dignity. We declare and affirm that the authority of government comes only from the people who live upon this land. We establish this constitution to secure liberty, protect the natural rights of all people, maintain peace and order, preserve the land and waters of the island, and create a just system of law that is clear, fair, and equal to all. We reject corruption, tyranny, and rule by hidden power. We reject laws that exist outside the knowledge or consent of the people. We therefore establish this constitution as the single and supreme source of law for Jamaica, replacing all prior systems of rule. This constitution is written in plain language so that every person may read, understand, and rely upon it. All authority exercised in Jamaica must arise from this constitution and remain accountable to the people. With this declaration, we establish a free and sovereign society founded upon truth, responsibility, justice, and mutual respect. Right? And this, in and of itself, basically summarizes the purpose of the Constitution and why it is there as the supreme law of the land. Right? It is there for the benefit of the people. Right? If we are a people that are creating, we're not going to create something to our detriment, no. So obviously, if we are coming together to create something like this, it is something that is going to be ultimately beneficial to all peoples. When I create something, we are going to harm us in the first place. So anything we are going to basically bring harm to us, we are reject it, right? So that is our preamble. And then we have our declaration, right? Sample declaration. Then we have our Bill of Rights. And this is one of the sections I'm going to spend some heavy time on, because a lot of times people don't realize that just because you don't see a right that is enumerated or written down, you don't realize you have that right, right? So this is one of the sections I'm going to work on heavily to expand recognized rights within Jamaica. All right. Right to education. Oh, here's a funny thing. Did you know that the Constitution outlined that certain schooling is supposed to be funded by the government. The current Jamaica Constitution outlines that the government should be providing schooling, but unfortunately, we don't really have a lot of that going on. Apothecary, lawful.
Yes, night, Chief. Lawful as always. Right. We have a little piece of me that say what I love to be, put into the constitution as well, where it concerns politics. Where I said that anyone wish to be elected as a councillor or a member of parliament for a particular constitution should be living either to the east or to the west of the constitution he or she wish to represent. Meaning that, you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead.
So meaning that whatever difficulties the community face or the constitution face,
right,
both the member of parliament and the councillor would be aware of all of the hardship or whatever it is facing the community. Instead of, because we currently have member of parliament living like 3-4 parishes away from where they are represented. No, I'm saying that should be changed. Even it will cost us the citizens, to build comfortable housing for them to live in the constitution. We would have, in the constituency, I should say, we the people should actually absorb that just to have them a stone throw away from us when we need them.
Right. Yeah.
So I don't know how that could be drafted in it, but yeah, that is what I would love to see in the near future for Jamaica as well.
Okay. Awesome. Well, going to make note of that so that we can include that suggestion when we are doing our review of the draft.
So that's just my little piece.
Yeah, man, big up yourself. Thank you for that.
Cool.
Okay, so there we have a suggestion that is going to be posted. Or, a matter of fact, let us use the form, right? So we can always go back. So that was Apothecary. Not sure of the email. So we just put in something. I just want to say the form is easy to fill out. And that was the suggestion. All members of local government must live in the area they represent. All right? And housing should be provided for governmental command representatives. All right, and we're going to submit that, and boom, submitted. So there we have one suggestion. We're going to have these suggestions right here on this page as well, so that we can see what we're going to add in our review once we have the initial draft completed. That was a good one. Because sometimes we don't realize that certain things will make things better, right? If we have our parish commanders and we're going to have, I guess you can say, either an upgraded or a slightly different form of government, we might want to consider that those officials who are actually going to be doing the work that we want them to do, we make them comfortable. It's a job, right? Yes, everybody should have them own, but we should facilitate facilities for them to not only be comfortable but to somewhat be secure in their duties and their job. So just like we would have, a House of Parliament, or we have whatever facilities are facilitated by the government, instead of we saying, okay, we are give you a rent stipend, or we are give you this, or we are give you that, we just provide housing. We provide housing, and that way we don't not only save on cost, but it might be more secure to do something like that, right? So that should cover that. So as we go through and we continue the creation of, this is what? Okay, so this is where we start section 1, right? So under the rights and freedoms, right, here we have right to education. Let me make this bigger. Anybody want to come up? There's one box. You can always click on the box, right? So, for example, right to education. All children shall receive education necessary to understand the laws, history, language, and responsibilities of Jamaica. Now, one of the things that I always thought about is Jamaica, are all parishes within Jamaica speak Patois. Everybody understand Patois. The Patois is world renowned, but it is not a language in Jamaica that is written down or recognized officially. It is just strange. How can we have a national language where everybody want to come to Jamaica come and say, yeah man, blouse and skirt, pants and shirt, all of these different things that we are molding into an ever-evolving living language, and it is not officially recognized and written down. It is just so strange. It is not recognized in the schools. It is not recognized in the courts. It is not recognized on official documents. It is not recognized anywhere except for when money is involved. Right? And if the core of our uniqueness is not recognized, how can we as a people build and be creative and express ourselves in a better way, right? You can't, in most cases we're going to be mixing English and Patois, right? But everybody understand Patois. Even the foreigner them understand Patois. And I am probably, in a smaller class of people who can read and write it, right? But it is not something that is unreachable. It's just that it might take a little bit more brain power for people actually write down something in a Patois, or if you read something in a Patois, because it's not familiar. You don't see it all the time, right? But for somebody who is always messing with language, it may not be that difficult. But that is one of the things that I think should be in a constitution, where the native language is recognized, right? The native language should be recognized. It don't have to be used in every aspect of life. But if someone only wants to stick to their native language, they should be able to do so, especially in speaking, as long as it is not derogatory. Options say right to healthcare in an affordable and timely manner. I'm going to do one upgrade with that. So options, that's what your TikTok name is, so that's what I go by. So options at gmail.com, right? To say right to healthcare in a timely manner. The reason I don't put affordable is because I don't think we should be paying for health. I think it is ridiculous. What we should be paying for is healthcare workers. But to be paying for health would mean that if you can't afford it, you're going to suffer. So I am going to just put the right to healthcare in a timely manner. Right? And of course, we can break that down further as we go along. See? So we have 2 suggestions. Very cool. So when we talk about these rights, right, we have to also distinguish the fact that a document cannot give us rights. These are just rights that are enumerated. Enumerated means they are just written down, right? So if we have rights that are written down and recognized, we can give details to it. But sometimes we have rights that are not written down. For example, our right to experience nature, right? That is not written down anywhere. But if we come out of our yard or we come out of our house and we just want to sit down and listen to the bird them in the morning, or we go down to the river and we just want to watch the fish them in the water swim, right? We're not supposed to be disturbed by observing and enjoying nature. That is a natural right. Nobody's not supposed to come harass you. I tell you, say, you can't do this for a certain time, or you can't do over yourself for whatever reason. Like, a lot of these restrictions that we have are actually hindering us as individuals, right? So, just because we write down something, that means that those are all the rights that we have. There are some rights that are just not written down, and we can always claim those, right? Right, that would fall under natural rights. But again, the rights that we have are rights that we have from birth. It doesn't come from a document like this. This document is just recognizing that these are common rights that we all have. And if these rights go violated because they are so common and they are often trampled upon, that is why they are written down. So that if somebody trample on your rights, you have a mechanism where you can seek restitution for the violations that occur. And one of the common ones are the right to bear arms. The right to arms, including guns and defensive weapons, right? I firmly believe that if every household have defensive weapon inside, we not have so much thief. We not have so much thief. We not have so much robbery. We not have so much unaliving. Because if a man knows that if him running in somewhere, he might not come back out. If him running in somewhere, he might not get away. That is a bigger deterrent than the police. Right? And I cannot see any reason for each household not to have defensive weapons available, just in case. If you want to keep it away from children, you simply put it under lock and key. Or you put it, you ensure that it is high enough in every household that, children are not able to get to it. And also, you leave them unloaded, right? So even if, by whatever miracle, a child gets to it, then can't get to the actual clip them or the magazine, right? So you better if you create preventative measures for accidents than to say, well, nobody can have it unless you go through and get license and get background check and all them something there. Because at the end of the day, now you are creating victims. Now you are create a crime problem rather than solving it, right? So this is why we have a section here. I say right to arms, including guns and defensive weapons. The people have the right to acquire, use, hold, transfer, and store in any way deeming fit any defensive weapon for one's own protection or protection of one's home and property. Innovation and creation of new items used as defensive weapons shall encompass this definition and shall not be converted in definition to mean an offensive weapon. This basic tenet of life shall be forever inviolable, and never the basis nor justification for presumption of intent to commit a crime, nor basis for a criminal charge without sufficient evidence to prove criminal elements. Right? So, even in today's day and age, we have security forces searching people and finding a knife and then charging them a fee, charging them to someone to go to court. You have an offensive weapon. You have an like, it is so nonsensical. It is just unfathomable. Even somebody who just purchased a knife, carry it go your yard. If them find it, they might tell us say it is offensive. How is it offensive when you not use it against someone? You're not threatening anyone. You're not displaying it in public. It is just ridiculous. And it is because we don't come together as a people to discuss these matters why this continue over and over and over again. And some people might look on it and say, well, boy, that's how it go. But then, when you get randomly searched for whatever reason, even when you object to the search, you say, no, I don't want to be searched, I am objecting to it. And then continue anyways. When they charge you and you go in front of the judge, the judge are going to tell you, say, well, it is considered this and it is considered that. What me I go cook with? Oh, me fi carry, what me fi do? Get one courier and pay the courier $1,500 for them carry come on my yard? None of these things are making sense. Even when the search is invalid, sometimes the judge is overlooking the fact that it was an unlawful search in the first place. So this is why, we have to we have to come together to create the laws that are beneficial to us. Aita Okoro says, can't come together when we are split in two. If you are talking about the party system, this is not what we're talking about. Welcome to class. We're talking about recreating, or let me rephrase, we're talking about creating an actual constitution rather than relying upon the framework that was provided to us in 1962. Yeah, Justin said, even a machete not in proper paper wrap up. Yeah, anything them find in your bag or in your car sometime, they might tell us, say, offensive weapon, offensive. It don't make sense. It does not make sense. I can see if you're out there brandishing something, showing it off, or holding it at someone, now you can say it is offensive. You're trying to use it to cause disturbance or harm or something or damage. But to just have it, it is now claimed that it is offensive. It is almost like the law is there to disarm the people. Or the rule is there to disarm the people. Alright? So anyways, if we draft a constitution, we cannot disarm the people, because now, if the people are disarmed, that means that they have no way of defending themselves. They have no way of stopping any kind of trampling of their rights before it happens. Kim says, remember when every newborn was backed by gold by the weight at birth? Barbados doing the same thing. Right. And we were talking about the social incentive the last time, where if we incentivize people to catch thief, right? If we incentivize people to catch thief, for example, if we say, okay, if you assist us in catching anyone who is, you see them a thief, or you see them broken in one place, you see them a run from whatever, right? And you assist in catching them and they are prosecuted, you are entitled, in no matter if I want somebody help or if I 10 somebody help, as long as you help and you hold that person for the enforcement agents, apprehend them, you are entitled to a certain amount, 20,000, 50,000, whatever the case may be, right? I don't think we would have a crime problem. You would never hear somebody get away in a nearby bushes. Because if a man knows say a $50,000 that a runway, him not making get away. Me know that for sure. If you see say, then can't get somebody, or you know where then they, and you can help apprehend them, and you will get $50,000 right away. Me not think would have a crime problem. Me not think so. Action now JA say they disarm us lawful citizens and harm unlawful citizens. Well, that is why we have to ourselves come up with the change that we see necessary. Right? We don't oppose the system. We simply create a new one. Right? Polygyny says cops shouldn't ask you if you're carrying like Florida. Right. Well, you see, when we go through the different ways that the enforcement structure can do their investigations, they have to have evidence to start with. In today's day and age, then just walk around and just do what them feel like say. Then say, oh, we have reasonable suspicion. So we are go investigate. We are investigate. That's why we are do what we are do. We need to remove that. Reasonable suspicion must come with evidence. Either you have the evidence written down, and if you have the evidence, it has to be reported to command. You cannot just be out there saying we have reasonable evidence, because again, if we have body cams and the body cams are activated as soon as there is movement, right? Or as soon as there is conversation, then we won't even have this problem. We would not have this problem. Actually, now JA says, yes, we're still going to have a crime problem because even with Crime Stop, they are always compensating. But the people are often time reported to the same criminal elements. Again, yes, we have Crime Stop, but the amount of paperwork and verification we have to go on, and then them have to prove, say, whatever information you submit, assist in whatever is going on, this would not be the same system. This would not be the same system, right? But either way, once we have evidence, right? Because that is the main thing. That is why a lot of things get away per se. We don't have the evidence to proceed. But once we have, enforcement officers with body cameras, automatic body cameras, then can't lock you off, then can't stop the recording, then can't stop the audio, then can't mute it, then can't, if then cover it, then face criminal charge. Then we will start having real investigation. Then we will start having real and honest criminal processes. When we can pull every single body camera and look back and see what happened. We don't need nobody explanation. We don't even need affidavits anymore. We would simply move forward with the evidence, right? In Aruba, still under the Dutch government, the police over there don't carry pistols, and the country is very safe. The government looks out for the people in the country. No investors can just come in and use people. Hey, that is very admirable if that is really what's going on. One of the options of government is either take away all of the guns or you arm everybody. If you have anything in between, that is where the problem starts, right? So, and also it also depends on the penalties. If we don't have harsh enough penalties for certain things, it is going to be fostered. It is going to continue to proceed in a manner that is going to continue in society. So we have to have harsh penalties for certain crimes. If we don't have harsh penalties, that is going to be a real big problem in any society. Christopher Lawful, welcome. Christopher, are you there? All right, look like Christopher not ready yet. Did you touch on marriage laws? No, we didn't reach there yet. We didn't touch any family matters nor marriage laws just yet. Quaco, Lawful, welcome. Lawful, welcome.
Yeah, what up?
Yeah, I'm there. What you up to?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I'm there.
Alright, alright. This press by mistake still, but you know, like what go on, yeah.
Yeah, man, up. Lawful.
Yeah, man, up. Yeah, man. Say a word. We link on the private.
Okay. Yeah, so we are currently at our 5th drafting session. So we're going to be covering much of some of those other matters that should be included, and we're going to make it a little bit more streamlined in the next session on Saturday. I'm thinking we might do Saturday evening instead of early Saturday, just so we can get more participation. If people want to submit suggestions, we can add some more. But we're going to include everything. And not only that, we're going to be looking at other jurisdictions, other places. What do their constitutions look like, right? What are they including that would possibly benefit us? We can't just always look at what we have in our hands. Sometimes we can get ideas, from others. And again, that is why we have this open session going, where we can actually collaborate and bring our heads together and draft something that is, well-rounded and beneficial to everyone. We can't always come up with everything, but we can certainly be creative with, what we have and what we can garner from others, So, yeah, that is it for now. We are going to continue on Saturday. You will see the schedule on the page. So you can go to my TikTok page and you will be able to see. If it's not on paper, it doesn't exist. Exactly. On my TikTok page, within the next 24 hours, I am going to put in the schedule for Saturday so that we can continue our drafting session. And then I think by Monday, we might be able to complete the initial draft. And once we complete the initial draft, then we're going to start implementing the suggestions. Then we're going to also look at other constitutions and infuse some of those elements. And once we are complete with that, then we're going to formulate and complete the structure, include the table of contents, and also lock the Constitution so that we don't have unlawful tethering or unlawful undermining of the Constitution like what we see in other jurisdictions. And we're going to talk about much of that once we are close to completion, right? So that we can secure our rights and make sure they remain concrete. Not just create it now and within a generation or two, them start change it back again. See? So that is it for this evening. Hope everybody enjoy the session. Around what time Saturday? Saturday, I'm thinking around between 5 and 6 p.m. we should be able to start. But it will be on the page. Well, it's going to be over here, so. But for now, if you want to check out the page is up here. Make sure you follow and like. And the website is voiceofjamaica.com. The schedule is not on Voice of Jamaica, but if you want to see the constitutional draft, you can go to voiceofjamaica.com and it will be the first post, right? And then we will continue on Saturday. Big up on yourself. Lawful, always.